Dr. Jensen has been a voice for the voiceless, tirelessly demanding peer review and updating of government models as new facts emerge. The path has now led him to enter the race to be the next governor of our state of Minnesota. Let's give a warm mask-off Minnesota welcome to Dr. Scott Jensen.
You folks are the best. But we have to do something before I start my comments. I need to have two young people come and join me. I need to have a young lady named Novalee, and I need to have Jackson. Could you both come up? I had a chance to speak with Novalee a few months ago, and if I can sometime get to the level that she is at, I will be thrilled. Novalee, a picture of you and I together. Thank you. And then there's Jackson. Jackson's my buddy, my mentor, and my hero. Jackson, let's shake hands. Thank you, guys. Let's get a picture. Novalee, let's get in there, get a picture. Thank you. Guys, forward. Can we get a picture, guys? You know the verse Esther 4:14, whether you know it or not. Have you considered that you're in the position you're in for such a time as this? That's why my wife and I are in it. You have been disrespected, your rights have been violated, you've seen an expansion of government at a level you could never have dreamt 18 months ago. And we all wonder in terror, what next? That's why you're here. Let me ask you a couple of questions. When the public health director in Illinois tells us that just because it says COVID-19 on the death certificate doesn't mean that they died of COVID-19. Does that tell you that the death certificates have been inflated? Yes. And when you have a PCR test being done, and Tony Fauci comes out and says that if we're cycle threshold of more than 40, we're picking up dead nucleotides, do you think that's a reliable test? Well, what about this? If the hospitals are going to get paid more than twice if they have a COVID-19 diagnosis on the discharge summary, do you think that might be motivation enough for physicians to change what they do from normal? All right. So how many of you are for defunding the police? Not many hands. How many of you, raise your hands, how many of you think that you have a right, parents have the right to be involved in their kids' education? Folks, what we are in the middle of right now is we are in the middle of systemic failure. And this is how it works. The first thing that has to happen is you have to be frightened. And the way that we had that happen to us was the death certificates were inflated. It was financially attractive to diagnose COVID-19, and a PCR test with up to 85% false positives in some areas were introduced, and even Tony Fauci said that we're just picking up dead nucleotides. That was where the start of it was. That's the fear, if you will. Then we had to see something exaggerated, and we saw the numbers exaggerated and exaggerated. And we knew something was happening. We knew that we'd never been in this place before. And that was where I came in. They had to accuse someone. They had to say someone's the bad guy. When I raised my hand and said, listen, when you tell us as physicians to put down COVID-19 as the cause of death, when this individual at 85 has stage 4 colon cancer, has been on hospice for a month, and everybody, including their family, has said their goodbyes, they know this person's going to be leaving this planet to walk through that other threshold. When we're told that that's a COVID-19 death, we know that that's simply wrong. And when I said that, I thought someone would call me and say, hey, thanks for the heads up, we'll fix it. That's not what happened. They went after my medical license. Then USA Today said, we're gonna fact check you. Then the Associated Press said that. Then Facebook said that. Then Laura Ingraham got in the act and she said, Scott, we got your back. Then Tucker Carlson said, we got your back. Then Rush Limbaugh said, hey, I'm going to talk about this guy because something's happening. So here we are. I have been ridiculed. I have been attacked. And what really made the difference, my wife and I, people have said, why do you want to run for governor? I look you straight in the eye and say, I never said I wanted to run for governor. My wife and I we feel compelled to run for governor, and it's because of you folks. You have been the everyday heroes that have pushed us forward. Thank you. In this pandemic, there were two ways we could have gone. Let's just talk about that. Do you remember in 1982 when Tylenol was laced with cyanide and 7 people died? Do you remember the response by McNeil and Johnson & Johnson, the parent company? They owned it. They were transparent. They said, we're not going to hide. They took all the product off the shelves. We'll reimburse you any product you want to bring to us. And they took care of the victims. That's not what happened here. We did not see transparency. We saw modeling that said we're going to have 75,000 deaths. In the US, we're going to have 2.2 million. And we said, show us the data. How did you get to that? Well, you wouldn't understand it. Wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Acetaminophen and Tylenol was all about transparency. But you know what we saw? We saw this huge fight about immunity. We knew that there were problems along the way with the modeling and everything else. But when we were told that natural virus immunity didn't count, that there's only 2 groups, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. When we were told that if you made a decision to not take the vaccine, it was because you weren't up to the task of understanding the issue, we were insulted. Minorities in particular have been absolutely insulted by the fact that the newspapers come out and say 70% of this group of people have chosen to not take the vaccine. They don't get it. No, they may well get it. They just exercised their right to something that Dr. Benjamin Rush talked about a long time ago in 1770. It's called health freedom. Benjamin Rush walked alongside of George Washington with the Continental Army. He was one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence. And he said in 1770s, we need to have health freedom or there'll come a day that we will rue that we didn't get this done. Fast forward 200 years. Dwight Eisenhower has been president for 2 terms. And he says this, I will paraphrase. There may come a day where our public policy will indeed be held captive to the scientific and technological elite. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening, my friends. And that's why you're here today, because you have a fire in your belly no different than the fire in my belly. And it has been stoked with hot gasoline, and it's going to continue to be stoked. Immunity was the thing that really put us over the top. And then we saw a lawlessness. We saw a lawlessness creep through the land. We were told it's not the bureaucrats' fault. It's not the politicians' fault. Friends, our professional class of politicians is not cutting it. They are not doing for you what you want them to do. They are not about solving problems. They're about deflecting. They're about omnibus bills. They're about the next election. They never want to say anything because they might have to sort of respond to it down the road. You have got to stand up as you are and say, we need our elected officials to be upfront, candid, and honest, and we have to converse about whatever you want us to talk about. We have to. And what about accountability? How do you get accountability? You have to do audits. Whether you're talking about vote counts, whether you're talking about death certificates, we have got to audit the data. When you audit the data, that's how you build trust. If you're not willing to audit the data, the question is, what are you hiding? And how about the restrictions? How about the restrictions? Sir, I'm sorry, your business isn't safe. But you, sir, your business is safe, so you can go ahead. And ma'am, so sorry, but you're not essential. But you with the largest candy store in Minnesota, you get to stay open. You couldn't go to church, but you can go to the big box liquor store. You couldn't have a funeral with more than 10 people there, but you could go to the biggest candy store. But then came the creme de la creme. They went into our education sphere, and they went to our kids. And you folks said, enough is enough. Thank God for you. Lockdowns have clearly been demonstrated that they don't do what we were told they would do. It doesn't matter if you're locking down businesses, locking down schools, locking in nursing home patients, locking out families. It doesn't matter. Lockdowns don't do what we were told that they would do. And let's go ahead and let's talk about masks. When you talk about masks, you've got to think about it and you've got to say, well, I think it's time to meet the moment. I think it's time to speak loudly and to speak clearly. Let's analyze the masks. This sport coat has 3 layers, 1, 2, and 3. That's very similar to a surgical mask. So if you came up here and breathed through my sport coat and you had COVID-19 in your pharynx, I'm sorry, you would not stop the viral transmission. Stanford released results from a study about a month ago that was done in Bangladesh. 170,000 people encouraged to wear masks. The masks were provided free, 170,000 not. What did they find? They came up with data that said that there was a 9 to 11% filtration efficiency ratio. What does that mean? That means that with a mask, you could arguably reduce viral load transmission by 11% in an optimistic setting, which would mean that 89% would not be stopped. In the Danish study, they found that if you wore a mask all the time, in the next 60 days, your likelihood of getting COVID was somewhere around 2%. If you didn't wear a mask at all, it was somewhere around 3%. Study after study after study has shown us that the masks do not prevent you from getting COVID-19. Now, can they help? Sure. Knock yourself out. Make your choice. Make your choice. Let's talk about the physics. A surgical mask or a sport coat has about a 5-micron pore. 5 microns. That's about the size of a red blood cell. If someone would pluck a hair from your head, not you, sir, you don't have enough hairs to pluck. But if they would, you could see the width of that, and that's about 50 to 100 microns. So shrink it down to 5 microns, that's a red blood cell. That's what a mask, a surgical mask, a cotton mask will stop. So 5 microns, pretty darn tiny. What is the size of a COVID particle? 0.1 micron. 0.1 micron. That's a difference of 50. So that makes us say, okay, all right, what's comparable? So let's just imagine in our mind's eye a pair of doors, a pair of French doors, okay? And someone hands you a golf ball. And you stand 3 feet away from this pair of French doors. Do you think that you could throw that golf ball through those open doors? Because that's what a viral particle has to do in terms of getting through a surgical mask. So don't tell me that masks are doing what they're doing, what we've been told that they're not. And when you try to hold a 4-year-old and have a mask on him, you're not being humane. The scientific studies have been done over and over again. Why did we have 20 years of data from 2001 to 2020 that said that RNA respiratory viruses such as influenza, such as COVID, don't work? Masks don't work. We had data after data after data. But somehow in 2020, we were told the same thing in February and March and April by such heroic figures as Mike Osterholm and Tony Fauci. But in May, they got religion. All of a sudden, masks are the ticket. By June, we were told that if you're not wearing a mask, you have no consideration for grandma. How did this happen? How did 20 years of data get thrown out the door? It was the same thing that happened with social distancing. 6 feet, It had been 3 feet for years in Europe. Do you remember a year and a half ago in May? We were told 32 feet if you're walking by someone who's at the park running. 32 feet away. It got sillier and sillier. What we need to remember about masks is there's a kaleidoscope of effects. If you think about the study that 6 masks were analyzed, what can we produce from these masks? We found fungus, we found Lyme disease, we found COVID, we found tuberculosis. These are the things we find when someone breathes through a mask for more than an hour. That's what we harvested from those masks. We have no idea what the downstream effects are going to be on the people that have been forced to wear masks. If you go on Google and you put in still face, S-T-I-L-L face, F-A-C, there's an experiment that takes about 3 minutes. And if you go to that and you watch what happens to a 9-month-old child who's denied the opportunity to interface with a parent with full facial expressions, it's gut-wrenching. And then we have to talk about the students. We are seeing suicides at an unprecedented rate. We are seeing suicidal ideation. Kids thinking about suicide. 25% of every child between 15 and 25 wondering if maybe things wouldn't be better if they would just snuff out their life. This is what we're seeing. We are seeing starvation, and that supply chain hasn't really hit. But we are going to have hundreds of thousands of people die because of what we did with masks. We are going to have an increase in tuberculosis like we've never had before. And we did this voluntarily. My friends, that is why you are here. You are fired up. You know that this is not right. And this isn't just about the masks. This is about the kids. This is about let them play. This is about let them learn. This is about let them do what they do. When we saw a dozen kids die of rotavirus vaccine because of intestinal blockage, it was the VAERS data that informed us. What happened? What happened? That somehow we said, even though the COVID-19 vaccine has more deaths, more severe reactions attributed to it than all the vaccines added together over the last 30 years, what happened that said we can just throw that data out the window and it doesn't matter? Biden happened. Yeah. So Biden comes out and he says, if you've got more than 100 employees, you're going to have a mask mandate. Well, let's just talk about supply chains for a minute. We had 3,000 ICU beds available to take care of Minnesotans in February of 2020. Last week, the Department of Health came out and told us we don't have 3,000 beds. We have 1,200. Well, what happened? Did 1,800 beds get thrown in some sort of a landfill? No. What we've done is we've decommissioned hospital beds. And it's because of staffing. So if you start firing the same nurses who you applauded 15 months ago as being heroes, what do you expect to happen? Let me tell you who's in the crosshairs right now. We have nurses and teachers in the crosshairs of government policies. Teachers go into teaching because they want to touch kids' lives. Nurses go into nursing because they want to help take care of people. Nurses have been just sickened by what has happened. They have done everything they can to hang in there and take care of sick folks. When we didn't have the PPE necessary to protect them, did they walk out? No, they stuck it out. They put themselves at risk, they put their kids at risk, they put their spouses at risk, they put their grandma at risk, and some of them died. And now we're going to fire them because they're not willing to violate their core convictions. Is this America? So you're here today. And I have to tell you, we do have a problem because the energy that you bring today, it has to be sustained because we are on the brink of losing America. Health freedom has to be your essential right, just as Second Amendment rights are your essential right. You have to be able to choose. On my bucket list, I always thought it would be sort of cool to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. I never thought it'd be cool to run for governor. And I'm still not convinced that it's cool, but I feel compelled to do it. And you are with me. So we're going to do this. And we're going to talk about how to get it done, because I'll tell you right now, folks, I will not be the darling choice of the Republican Party. And you know why? Because I just don't respond to those damn levers. I don't like them. We're not going to take $1 from Big Pharma. We're not going to take $1 from Big Tech. They're out. I need you. I need you and you need me. We need to get this done. If we keep doing what we've done the last 25 times, you know what happens? Conservative values will not lead. And let's talk about conservative values, because we need to have that damn conversation. Conservative values mean this. Conservative comes from the word conservare, and it means to safeguard. It's to safeguard your life, your choice, your will. That's what it is. The Republican Party has lost its way at times. We need to remember that it's not about stodgy old wealthy white men. It's about people who say, I stand for the Constitution. I'm an American. I get to be free. You don't give me my freedom. You can imagine how I go over with the puppeteers. I don't kiss the ring. And that's why I need you. I need every one of you. I need you to be a delegate for us, because we need to do something different in 2022. If the good Lord had told me 6 months ago that we would raise $1 million in 6 months, which has never been done before for the Republican Party in an off year, if someone had said that we'd have almost 100,000 people sign up on our email list, if someone had told me that we'd have 500,000 people watching everything we put on social media platforms, I would have shook my head and said, you know, I may be a dumb kid from Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, but I'm not buying that. But that's exactly what happened. So we're going to do this. And I need you to go to drscottjensen.com, DRSCOTTJENSEN, drscottjensen.com/join the fight. Join the fight. Be a delegate. Go February 1st. Bring your phone, because a lot of those political proceedings can be pretty darn boring. But if you got your phone, you can amuse yourself. But go be a delegate for us. Sign up. Because when it comes to the state convention next May, I need you. We need to tell Minnesota, and we need to lead America. There's a reason why Nova Lee and Jackson are doing what they're doing. There's a reason why you're here today. We know that there's no possibility that we can stay on the sidelines and expect things to spontaneously get better. We got to get on the field, and we got to do something that the Vikings don't always do: block and tackle. So friends, it has been the privilege of a lifetime for me as a family doctor for 40 years to advocate for my patients and to earn their trust. And I would love the opportunity to earn your trust as your governor. I would work my tail off. If we have more votes than our opponent on election night, I promise you, I will not see that as a victory. I will see that as an invitation to roll up my sleeves, work my tail off, and to change Minnesota. What is that going to look like? That is going to look like safe streets where you can let your kids go out in the front yard and not worry about bullets ricocheting off them. We will reaffirm as a state that while catch and release might be a program that works for walleyes, it doesn't work for hardened felons that are intent on hurting people. And we will see school choice emerge, because we know that parents know best. Let them play, let them learn. Don't wear a mask, and you get to choose. If we do that, we will change the world. And we will pass 3 strong Second Amendment supports. We will come out and pass stand your ground, constitutional carry, and we will ban red flag legislation. But what you will be most proud of, will be the 3 words: pay it forward. Because you know as well as I do that when you look at our Constitution, you're looking at words like this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and for Jackson and for Nova Lee and all the other kids that are going to come after us, because that's what we got and that's what we're obligated to do for the next generation. So it's all going to come down to this, folks. How will you answer the question when it comes down to, as fellow citizens, we have the power to literally galvanize the United States. If 12 months from now, this nation is watching Minnesota and saying, how in the heck is that governor's race still in play? We can change the nation. We can change Kansas and Michigan and Wisconsin and Maine, and we can have them say, you know what? We're going to do the same thing. We're going to vote for health freedom. We're going to vote for kids' rights. We're going to protect our liberties. We're not going to let this happen again, because we're going to answer the question, will you join Scott Jensen by saying yes? Thank you so much.